welcome back to another video today. So fair warning, today's video is a little long, but I do have 3 cards to share with you instead of the normal 1 or 2. So I hope that you stick around and pull up your favorite chair and a good beverage and let's get creating. So a while ago, I purchased the Simon's Stamp Layering Hearts Mandala set. They had a big sale and I went to town and bought, a whole bunch of stuff. Just haven't had a chance to play around with it, so I pulled it out and that's what we're going to use today. The set comes with the background stamp as well as the layering stencils. So this is actually going to be the first of a 2-part video. I am going to use the background stamp for all of today's cards. And then in a future video, probably the one that I post next week, we'll use the stencils, the coordinating stencils there. So like I said, this is a longer video, but I guess it's not as long as it could have been if I had used all of it. So today's video focuses, like I said, on the background stamp, and we're going to creatively ink up our stamp rather than just using it in the same ordinary way that we always do. We're going to have a little fun with our inks today. So let's get started. So as always, I have prepared a few materials in advance. I have my card bases and I have some Simon's Stamp inks in various colors. We're kind of do a little bit of a rainbow stamping. I have my brayer. This is going to be for our fun technique. And I have my card bases. We're only making one with this. I don't know why I showed you 2. And there's the stamp and also some extra paper that we'll need for something, and then the Nina Solar White that we're going to do our stamping on. So we're going to go ahead and put our stamp in our MISTI, and then I put one of the card pieces on my Brutus Monroe sticky mat, and then I just have a piece of scrap paper laid over the top there so that I don't, get my cardstock inky or messed up. So I'm gonna come in with my brayer and we're just gonna ink up the edge of our brayer. So you also want to make sure that when you go to stamp that when you go to bray rather, that you got the brayer facing the right way up. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to roll it. So I'm just going to ink up the edge of the brayer there. I don't need to do the whole thing because we're just going to ink along the edge of the stamp. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to roll it along the outer edge of our circle stamp there. Go ahead and make sure, I put the stamp in the MISTI because I don't want to have to move it later and press it down. So that's why I'm actually inking it up while it's in the MISTI. So I inked it up with the red and then I went ahead and cleaned it off. You want to make sure that when you do this, you want to make sure that you get all of that ink off of there. And you can see there where I rolled it off a little bit on that scratch paper and found it still had ink on it. So I went back and cleaned it again. So now I'm coming in with the yellow, which is Duckling by Simon's Stamp. And again, and then I'm going to just line it up. It's okay if it overlaps. I kind of want it to so that I get a little bit of the orange in there. It's being able to make that rainbow without having to use all the colors. So I'm just rolling along, right along the edge of the red there. This is why we didn't do the whole brayer. I'm going to come in next with the blue. I'm going to clean it off, get that all off of there. It took a couple of seconds. You really, like I said, you just really want to make sure that you clean it off very well. And this time I'm going to ink up the other end of the brayer as we move down the stamp. So I'm just going to ink that all up there. And this is where I kind of sped this up a little bit because I really just do the same thing that I did before. I did go in and wipe off a little bit of the blue along the bottom because I wanted to be able to add one more color. I kind of rolled it off there on that scratch paper to make sure it was clear. And then I came in with some Hot Mama ink from Simon Says Stamp, right up that edge there, inked that all up. And then I noticed I had a few spots missing with the red, so I kind of came back in and just went over that one more quick time. And I'm gonna pull off my scratch paper, and as I said, my cardstock is already there. It's stamped down pretty firmly. Close the door, flip it over, and use our little tool, and we'll go in here and we'll get a good impression. And you do want to make sure that you take your time and get that really good pressure and that good impression, because this is a one-shot deal. You're not going to be able to restamp it. So, because you won't get the colors lined up the way they were before. So I'm going to pull this off of there, and you can see we have a very pretty little rainbow type background. It's pretty muted. It's not very bright, and that was fine. That was what I was going for. I think if you wanted to do something that was very bright and vibrant, you probably using distressed oxide inks would be your better go-to, but I wanted to use my Simon inks because I haven't used them in a while. So and you can see here from the picture, it is a much more muted look. So did not want to do a lot of, I didn't want to pull focus from the background. So I kept the rest of the card pretty simple. I trimmed it down a little bit so that there was a little bit of a border on the edge there because it fit better with our sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the back here to our card base. Get that on there. Flush with the fold of the card. And then the reason, like I said, the reason why I ended up trimming it down was because I wanted the sentiment to kind of stick off the edge there, but without sticking off the edge of the card. So I just had some already cut die cut sentiments. I die cut a bunch of them and I just have them handy for quick finishes on cards. This is from, I don't even know where, I got this set off of Amazon, and it just has all kind of simple sayings in it. Hello, hi, happy birthday, all the standard things. So I added that with my glue and then came back in with the little pieces for the E and the O. When you die cut and you die cut in like batch form like that, make sure you save your little pieces because you'll need them. And then I decided, me, I gotta have a little shimmer and a little sparkle. So I took my Spectrum Noir glitter pen, and I'm just gonna add some random sparkle to the front of the card. Not all over, just in some, random but strategically placed spots on the card. And this is going to finish our first card that we're going to do today. Super simple. Don't be afraid to try new techniques. And you do get that little bit of shimmer there. So it's hard to see in real life, but sometimes it catches. So now let's move on to our second card. Again, using the same stamp set. This time we're going to do some ink blending. I have a piece of, I realized that I needed some Bristol Smooth cardstock, so I cut a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock because we're going to ink blend the whole thing. And if you are new here, I much prefer Bristol Smooth cardstock than Nina if I'm going to do a whole panel of ink blending. I just think it blends smoother. I chose some pinks and purples for this background. I have Spun Sugar, Kitsch Flamingo, Dusty Concord, and Villainous Potion. I'm going to start with the Spun Sugar in the middle. I'm just going to take I don't have, a handle for, I have a foam pad for every color, but I only have 3 handles. You would think I would have 4 because I usually always blend with 4, but no, I only have 3. So note to self, I need to get some more of those. So I'm going to start with the Spun Sugar here in the middle. And for me, it's just easier to blend when the card is in a landscape motion or position. So I'm going to start in the middle here and just lightly kind of bring that color down into the center. And I'm kind of just going around in a circle. I'm going to come in now with the Kitsched Flamingo and make a little outer circle around the middle there. And then I sped it up. You guys have seen me ink blend before. I'm just laying down some color here, getting that all the way that I want it. I'm going to switch to my purples, some Dusty Concord. And the purple came out a little darker than what I had anticipated. But that's the great thing about blending with distressed oxide inks. It'll even out. I will come back in and lay down some more color and buff it out, and it's all going to be just fine. There's no, I mean, there is a wrong way to blend your inks, but at the end of the day, it will come out just fine. So don't stress about it. I'm not the resident expert on ink blending, but I just kind of play around with it until I get something that I'm happy with. And, distressed oxide inks are very forgiving. You can do a lot with them. So I just came back in with various different colors, the color palette that I had chosen, and filled in the gaps where I needed to, blended them in, and then had this really pretty background. Okay, so here's where I had a little bit of technical difficulty. I've already stamped the image, but then didn't realize that it wasn't recording when I stamped it. So I actually wanted to stamp it twice. And this is where it kind of turned out. It turned out for the good, but I tried to get it lined up exactly the way that it was before. It's a little off, but it actually turns out really pretty. So and I stamped it with the Simon Says Stamp white pigment ink pad. I forgot to mention that earlier. So again, getting that really good impression on our stamp. And I'm going to pick that up, and it stuck to the stamp, which is why I couldn't get it to line up again. But you can see it's a very pretty blurred image, white background on our ink blended background that we have, which turned out very, very pretty in real life, actually. So in this instance, the error worked in my favor. So to add the little shimmer and sparkle on this card, I'm going to use some crystal stickles. And I'm just going to come in and do some quick little dots all over the card. Not all over the card, but in various places. And you'll see here, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of speed this up. I just added various little pinpoints of glitter on the card, on this background here. It took a couple minutes, so I just added in somewhat of a strategic plan so that they were even, but like I said, randomly as well. And then I actually ended up letting this dry overnight. I did these cards and filmed this video over a 2-day period. So this was actually the sort of end of day one with the creating of it. So I let that dry overnight and then moved on to the second part of the card, which was to do the sentiment. So, and then of course, there's never enough sparkle. Pick that up, and you can just kind of see it's really pretty little sparkly dots there. And with that shine of the distress oxide background and the white pigment ink, turned out really well. So once again, I did not want to hide the background. I wanted the focus to stay on the background. So I decided to do some stamping on vellum, which I don't do very often. I don't know why. It's not difficult. I just don't think about it. I chose to use the Simon Says Stamp Handwritten Greetings set. This is an older set, but I love it, and I haven't used this one in a long time either. So, it's always good to break out your older items sometimes too from your stash. So when you're stamping on vellum, I highly recommend that you heat emboss whatever it is you're going to stamp, because otherwise depending on the ink that you use, it will smear if you don't. So my personal preference is to just heat emboss. However, if you're going to heat emboss on vellum, you need to make sure that you stamp with a good ink, and also that you stamp heat it quickly. So I'm going to go ahead, and my vellum is in my MISTI here. Get that where I need it to be. I'm going to run my anti-static powder tool over so I don't have any stray embossing powder. We're going to stamp it in VersaFine black ink, and then we'll go over it with clear powder. I'm going to use this one that says, "Hope your day is as wonderful as you." I'm going to put it down here, sort of lined up at the bottom of my MISTI, mainly so that I don't waste the rest of the vellum. So I'm going to just pick that up with my door there, come in and go over that with my ink pad. My gun, my heating gun, is actually already heating up at this point. Like I said, two things. One, heat quickly, and make sure, and fasten and hot is what you want for heating on vellum. So heat your gun up with a lot of time. So let it just heat up, because the hotter it is, the quicker your embossing powder will set. So put that off to the side there. And then I came in with my clear embossing powder. Again, my gun is off camera over there. My heating tool is off over there heating up still, which I still have the original Stampin' Up! Heating gun that I have had for literally like 20 years, since I first got introduced to heating embossing. But it still works. So I'm going to sprinkle over my clear embossing powder, and then I have a dry brush, and I just went in and kind of got rid of any sort of stray powder that was around the sentiment there. I mean, it's clear, and it probably would have been fine, but I just didn't want to take any chances. So now, grab my little hot hand tools here so that I don't burn my hands. Hold on to that. Do some maneuvering here and grab my gun. And like I said, quick and quick and hot is what you want when it comes to heating vellum. So I just ran that over enough to set it, sped it up a little bit there, but then you can see you get this nice crisp image. Let that dry. I let it dry for quite a while and let it cool. And then I'm gonna place the sentiment across the center of the background. When I adhere vellum, I try to hide it, the adhesive, as much as I can. So I'm gonna score this, and then we're gonna wrap it around and put the adhesive on the back. So I turned it over and laid it down so that the score lines would fold over the correct way. Took my little stylus, and I just made some little score lines right along the edge of each side of the vellum. And that's going to help me wrap it around without it crinkling and cracking too much. So, and I just put that tape there on the background just to kind of hold that in place while I was working with that vellum. And then we're going to wrap it around. And what I found was that rather than trying to hold it all in place, I just adhered the one side first. So I'm going to flip that over and run my tape runner right along the edge here so that I could just secure this first side right here. And then I'll kind of pull it and get it where I want it to be. And then I'll flip it over and secure down that second end there. And really, there's no adhesive on the front underneath the vellum, but that's fine. It's okay. It's not going to go anywhere. We're going to attach the panel to our card base, and it's going to be just fine. So you don't have to adhere the vellum in the front. If you're worried about the adhesive showing through the vellum, don't put any adhesive behind that front piece of vellum. Hide it on the back. So I thought about doing some dimension adhesive, but then I decided to just keep it a pretty two-dimensional card and keep it pretty flat. So I'm just going to add our panel to our card base right here. And that is going to finish up our second card today. Come in and just recrease that edge right there. And then it's a very pretty sparkly fun card as well. So moving on to card number 3 today. This is again using our same stamp. I'm going to do this one on, I'm going to change it up a little bit and do our background on some Nina Desert Storm cardstock. Again, cut slightly smaller than the 4.5 by 5.25. So I think this is just a little bit less. I laid the paper on there so that I would know exactly where the stamp was going to be. I'm going to come in again with the white pigment ink from Simon and gonna just stamp this all up. My white ink pad isn't used very often, so I probably need a new one. It's a little bit dry, so I kind of sped this up because it took me a hot second to get that good and inked up there. So want to make sure that we get our good impression, and then the reason why I flipped it over again is because I need the stamp to stay where it is. So now we're going to do some more inking. I'm going to leave the ink pad, or the stamp rather, right where it is. Not going to wipe it off, not going to do anything with it, not going to move the paper. And we're going to come in with some oxide, distress oxide inks, and we're going to add some more color to our stamp. I'm going to use my little sponge daubers. I just have this little case, and then I have one for every color, and I have a little label up there at the top that tells me, which one is which, and I also have each little thing labeled as well. So I'm going to pull out the ones that I need, and I chose Blueprint Sketch, Salty Ocean, and Twisted Citron for my colors. So it's going to pull those out, set that little case off to the side there. And if you've not used these little sponge daubers before, these are great for just little areas that you want to stamp. They just fit onto your fingers. You could do them all at one time, I guess, but my ring finger is a little too small for that. So I just did one, and I am going to start with my Twisted Citron. I'm going to get some ink on there, and then I'm just going to come in and kind of pounce around some ink all over, and, once again, randomly but strategically placed parts of the stamp all over. Like I said, didn't wipe off the stamp. Still want the white on there is fine. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll just re-ink the parts that are not going to be in color. So like I said, I just kind of went all around and then did some more citron here, and then came in with the Salty Ocean, and again just pounced on some ink color there. Don't be afraid to, like I said, don't be afraid to be creative. This idea came to me at literally, about 2 hours before I got all of this done. So I was like, oh, hey, I wonder if I could do that. And, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, no big deal. So I'm kind of come in with the Blueprint Sketch and do a little bit more, finish off some more Twisted Citron and some more Salty Ocean and that Blueprint Sketch in the middle. And then we're going to close the door, and because we left everything where it was, it should line up just where it was. That's why I wanted to make sure that the stamp didn't come off the door, and I wanted to make sure that the paper didn't move either. So again, this is a one-shot deal, which is why I'm taking my time and making sure I'm getting some good pressure on there. And then here is our next or our final background piece. And you just get this really pretty muted but colorful background. For the sentiment, again, I'm going to keep it simple. I am using Alta New bold sentiments, and I'm going to use the one that says you're amazing, or you are amazing. Come in with some white cardstock, and simple as always, going to lay that down right there. I wasn't sure how close to the edge I wanted it to be, so I left myself a little bit of room over there. And to keep with the color theme of the card, I came in with some Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just going to stamp that. Oh, I forgot to put my magnet there. I always use my magnet to keep my my mat inside my MISTI because it can slide around a little bit. There, press that down. And then it needed to be stamped again, so I just inked that up again. Did my second little pass over on the sentiment there, and then came in and picked that up, trimmed it down, and I ended up making some little cut ends, some little like ticker tape ends on the corner there. Super easy, just snip up the middle and then snip from each corner to the center line. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mine are always a little bit off. I guess if you were to like really scrutinize them, they're not even on both sides, but you know, it adds a little bit of interest to a sentiment. I know that there are die cuts out there that will do this for you, but I just didn't have time for that. I was like, I'm just going to snip this off of here. Sometimes, you know, don't overthink the simple things, right? So then I had my sentiment, and I kind of played around with where I wanted it to go. I was like, well, do I want it to go across the center? I decided I didn't want it to go directly across the center, and then I pulled it down, and then finally decided to just, I didn't want to do anything that was going to hide the center of the background that we had made. And so I just ended up putting it down there at the bottom. Just going to add that sentiment right down there. And then we will come in and add our background to our card base. I'm going to lay my card base flat so it's just easier for me to adhere the background to. Again, I just went ahead and added some tape runner. I did not use any dimensional adhesive because I hadn't used any on the other two, so I wanted to keep that consistent. So I'm just going to flip that over and add that onto there. That down. And then it was a little off, so I ended up having to pull it up just a little. It's a little off centered, so I fixed that, got that down, and came in and just finished it off with, once again, a little bit of shimmer and shine from the handy dandy Spectrum Noir glitter pen. When the liquid went on, because of the craft or the Nina Solar Desert Storm cardstock, it looked a little milky, but it dries clear. And so again, I tried to do a sort of random but strategic. I did all of the hearts around the edge and then around the inner block, and then did the center as well. So once again, just adding those final little touches for the card. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I was like, well, do I want to add white pen? Do I want to add some more stickles? What do I want to do for the shimmer and shine on this one? And I thought about leaving it alone, but then I was like, well, no, because I put shimmer and shine on the other one. So, you know, I try to keep things consistent as much as I can. So while I'm finishing all of this up, I just wanted to take a couple of seconds just to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed to my channel. My new little channel is growing, and that makes me very excited and motivates me to do more content and create things. If you're new here, I would love to have you subscribe. Would be great to see you come back again and get some more inspiration. Like I said, also, this is the first of a two-part video. I will be back next week with the second part that will focus on the layering stencils that came with this set, and we're going to have a lot more fun with that as well. So just like I said, just finishing up these final little pieces right here. And then I'll just hold it up so you can see a little bit of that shine. And that finishes the cards. Here is another quick close-up of all of the cards. There's more information and pictures on today's blog post. Again, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all again next time.